and thanks for joining us for another episode of Mid-American Gardener. I'm your host, Tinsha Spain, and joining us today are three of our expert panelists who are here to take your questions and give you some advice and tell you a little bit more about what they're seeing outside in the garden. So before we jump in, let's have them go around and introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about their specialty. So Kelly, we'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Kelly Allsup, and I am a extension specialist in horticulture for University of Illinois. My specialty is integrated pest management. I'm passionate about pollinators, and I do have a background in greenhouse management. So I'm a jack of all trades, right?
Yes, and she loves insects.
I love insects. I love the insects.
All right, Ella.
I'm Ella Maxwell, and I work at a local garden center, and I'm also a master gardener, and my specialty is trees and shrubs, and I'm going to talk about some perennials today.
Awesome. And Richard.
Hello, I'm Richard Henschel. I'm a University of Illinois horticulture educator as well. My bigger background is in woody ornamentals with kind of bits and pieces of plant physiology and plant pathology woven into that. And I always kind of consider myself somewhat similar to what Kelly has said. I'm a generalized specialist.
Okay, great. All right, let's jump right in. So Ella, we'll start with you with some show and tells. What'd you bring us today?
Well, I wanted everyone to know about some pruning problems because in the big storm that we had last night, high winds, I had a tree fail and come down. So I've spent the morning with a chainsaw cleaning up my yard. And what I want to bring to people's attention is the fact that you can get what's called co-dominant branching. So this isn't exactly, but this is close enough to demonstrate where, especially on plants that have opposite leaf arrangement, you can get these narrow branch angles, and this joint right here is structurally weak. And so what can happen, and in the storm last night, is this is exactly what happened, and then the top broke out and it all fell, and it was a black locust, which are pretty brittle trees anyway. But what Dr. Gilman down in Florida has been doing a lot of research with this, and you don't really want to cut or prune right here because you can leave a wound that's next to your the desirable part of the tree that you're going to leave. So what you can do is you can go up higher in the tree and you can just take off the a lot of this wood reserves with the leaves and such. And so now this is going to subjugate, and this one's going to become more dominant. It'll change the diameter of the ratio over time, and you have a more structurally sound tree. And of course, there was nothing I could do for the tree in the storm. It was on our property when we bought it, really high up in the air, but I was surprised how it failed. So in pruning, watch out for those co-dominant branching. You really want to have 90-degree attachments, nothing real narrow, weak. That's my show and tell.
So hopefully you didn't have any property damage, or, you know, it didn't fall on a car or a garage or anything.
No, it just made a mess.
Okay, we'll take the mess, right?
Yeah.
Could have been worse.
Now,
Okay.
I drove down the street and there was a tree that failed on a garage and a car. So
Oh my gosh.
glad it
Oh
wasn't.
gosh. Yeah.
And some people in town still don't have power, but ours just blipped on and off.
We're dealing with a little bit of that over here as well. So, okay, thank you very much, ma'am. All right, we're going to move to Richard now. He has a tell instead of a show to pick up on a topic that we discussed not too long ago, the mystery seeds that people have been receiving. So, Richard, if you wouldn't mind providing us an update.
Sure. The update that I can share is that as this story has evolved, even though we clearly have been saying from the very beginning, please don't open these seed packets and certainly don't plant. We've had at least a couple locations, one in Arkansas and one in Kentucky, where the folks actually went ahead and planted them, but they did so prior to hearing the warning. So so that happened anyway, and the seeds have been growing out. Of course, once they learned that they shouldn't have done that, they called their state departments of agriculture, and they were instructed to dig them up, burn them. They may have come out and even have confiscated the young plants and taken them back. So that was a couple unfortunate bits. But what the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Plant and Animal Plant and Health Inspection Service, along with the PPQ folks, they have really want us to, besides not opening, of course, and certainly not planting, they want you to save the packaging. They want you to save any wrappings that came with it, so that the Postal Service and USDA can collectively trace back where those packages actually come from. The concerns would be, are these seeds invasive, as you might have heard earlier? Do they carry a disease that is non-native to the United States and create a very bad disease management situation if they did get planted? Of the 14 or so seeds that the USDA has identified, and I'll get my list here. So far, they've identified mustard, cabbage, mint, sage, rosemary, lavender, morning glory, hibiscus, and roses. So there's a few more that they need to identify. So on the surface, that sounds harmless, but do those seeds carry a disease with them? And that's one of the biggest concerns. Initially, there were several agencies willing to take and collect the seeds if you wish to return them. For example, in Illinois now, it is the USDA APHIS PPQ headquarters up in Des Plaines, Illinois, that's doing the booking and the intake of those seeds right now. So that's kind of the quick update. I think the story has slowed down a bit. I think most folks know it. They got hit into the States illegally because they were shipped in as beads or jewelry. Had they been shipped in clearly marked seeds, the U.S. Postal Service would have never allowed them to go any farther. And the USDA quarantine people would have jumped all over that right away. So they got here illegally.
For me living in Vermilion County, if I get a packet of these seeds, do I put them in the mail to Des Plaines? How do I get them to where they need to go? And where can I go online to find out?
Okay, well, I will gladly supply the contact information after this if you want to post it. Okay. So the listeners viewers can have the correct address to ship it to. That'd be fine. Sure.
Okay, we can get that on our Facebook right away. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The overarching message: do not plant them, right?
Correct. Do not open, because if there's something inside the seed packet, you opened it, it could be air dispersed. So they don't want you to open, certainly don't want you to plant, and save all the packaging. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, Kelly, we're going to go to you. Now, you had a show and tell that kind of went with one of your questions. Which one was that?
My question is the 918. It's about the milkweed and the latex.
Oh, perfect. Okay. If we could get number 918 up, it's kind of a long one, so I will kind of skim and paraphrase.
Okay.
Have a question regarding a conversation on your show regarding milkweed. Being very new to gardening, definitely in the learning stage, the conversation centered around butterflies. Is this the same plant that as a child I would break off a leaf and a white milky substance would weep at the raw edge? If so, I was not familiar with it being associated with butterflies. We used it to treat warts. 1 drop of the substance on a wart every day for about 2 weeks and it would be gone. The substance dries clear and doesn't hurt or burn like many other cures or treatments found in stores. This person says, I've been told that the American Indians use this plant for medicinal purposes. But we did have monarch butterfly cocoons all along our fence every summer, but I thought that was due to us living in the migratory path of the monarch. And that is from someone who is from Palo Alto, California. So interesting story.
I know.
So what have you heard about this?
Yeah, so first of all, as a horticulturist, I cannot address the medicinal purpose of the plant. I am not a doctor. I do not have that expertise. But yes, I'm saying, you know, milkweed. I have a plant right here. If you cut it, cut the stem, and I don't know if you can really see that, it actually
Yeah, we can see it.
leaks this white milky sap. It's latex. It also has a toxic alkaloid. So it actually really benefits the insects that eat it because it makes them toxic to birds and mammals, which is why so many insects actually use the plant. And yes, monarchs, caterpillars, they feed on these milkweeds, all types of milkweeds, but also the picture showing now is milkweed tussock moth. It's another caterpillar that has evolved to feed on this plant, which in turn makes it poisonous. So yes, those milkweeds that were growing were feeding your monarch caterpillars, and then they were going to the fence to build their chrysalises. And they crawl, the milkweed, the monarch caterpillars, they usually crawl a little bit a ways from the plant to make that chrysalis. Sometimes you'll see them on your lawn furniture or the side of a building or the side of a concrete pot. It's really quite interesting how far they go. So yeah, that latex is, that's exactly what those milkweed monarch butterflies want.
Interesting. While you were talking, I looked real quick I just Googled milkweed and warts. Apparently it's a thing. Richard, Ella, did any of you, have you heard this wives' tale?
No,
No.
but maybe, well, I need to try
Interesting.
it.
Yeah, okay. I'm interested now. All right,
Yep.
thank you very much, Kelly. All right, Ella, we're back to you with another show and tell.
Okay. Another problem that I found out I have is my coneflowers were getting broken off. So it happened to my sunflowers too. I'd get some really nice ones, and then I'd get a whole bunch of these. And come to find out, this is from the feeding of a adult female weevil. She punctures with her little mouth part a circle around here, and then she'll lay her egg, and it will develop in these broken heads, and they become a little grub, and they'll then eventually fall to the ground, and they'll stay all winter, and then next summer, it's a single generation, the adults will emerge. So you can see the coneflower here. You can see how the center of it is all black, and this is where the little grubs were. I actually found the weevil. I was blaming everything else. But I have all of these beautiful coneflowers that look like this. So what I'm doing now is I'm capturing all of these. I'm putting them in a plastic bag and putting them in my garbage so that I'm trying to break the cycle. I don't really want to spray my coneflowers with any pesticide because of all the pollinators that utilize them, but the population has certainly built up since last year. I had some, but it got worse. And it's just a small little weevil doing all of this damage all along my whole row of coneflowers.
So do you not use any of the, so-called organic sprays or the non-harmful ones? You try to just stay away from anything?
I really try not to use anything if I don't have to.
Mhm.
And of course, the weevil problem got away before I realized it. But again, you can kind of see right here on this one, a little darkening, and it just snaps so easily. And the little eggs are laid, and larva hatches and moves into this center. So
Wow.
I'd never heard of that before.
No.
I had
Those little
heard
creative
so many-
devils.
so many new insects this year that, you know, if you don't spray, then you get all kinds of things. You get the beneficials and the not beneficials. But, you know, I am enjoying all the different types of bees and butterflies and all these different insects, caterpillars and stuff. But again, some of them,
Yeah.
I wish they didn't come visiting.
Yes, my boys have taken a really big interest in mantises, manti, I don't know, whatever, those guys this summer because they've been plentiful too. And you're right. I mean, we bought a couple bee houses because they just were everywhere, and I thought, let's give them a home so they will leave us alone. But that's a good thing. I learned that in Master Gardener training, right? If you don't have your own little ecosystem, you're not doing something right. So I guess they think our houses are friendly, Ella.
That's it. Thanks.
All right, we're going to.
May I say something really quick, Tanisha?
Sure.
You know, being a pesticide person, just because it's organic doesn't mean it's safer.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
Actually, you know, it's a chemical that is designed to kill or wants to kill. So rather than, even though organic, you know, we some of them, we found that they are, you know, safer on beneficial insects. It's organic versus synthetic, rather than, you know, saying organic versus synthetic, you know, how harmful is that pesticide, or how long does it last in the ecosystem? And so, you know, even if Ella were to use an organic based pesticide, let's say she used insecticidal soap, it would kill everything it came in contact with. It just wouldn't last a long time, versus using a carbamate where it would kill immediately, and then it would have a long lasting effect in her garden. So, you know, unless it is just, you know, a pest that absolutely must be controlled, I think a lot of gardeners just choose not to. And I think what Ella did was amazing. I mean, that's the secret, is she just went out there and scouted over and over, and, you know, decided to, you know, find out what it was before she made a pesticide decision.
Thank you. That's great information, truly, because that is true. If we see something that says, you know, all natural ingredients or organic, if you're not careful, you can get fooled into thinking, oh, well, this is fine for the environment, or this is fine for. So excellent point. Richard,
or even safe for you. I mean, even don't think that it's because it's an organic pesticide, it's safe for you. You still have to protect yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Good info. All right, Richard, we're going to you, 950. This one is from Mr. Miller. It says, this spring, I bought and planted a pair of young Miss Kim lilac trees. They were grafted onto what? I have no idea. One of them has a fair amount of bark, curling and peeling away. Other than that, the tree is doing well. Is the curling or peeling bark something I should be concerned about? I've attached some pictures. Great show. So let's see what Mr. Miller's got going on here.
Right. Well, as he mentioned, the Miss Kim lilac, and we know that is a typical shrub about 5 by 5 in size, is literally grafted onto the top of what we call a standard. Now that's probably the tree form lilac, a late lilac as we know it, and that dark reddish brownish bark is typical, and yes, some of it will exfoliate. The picture of the trunk that I'm looking at isn't quite detailed enough to see if that peeling bark has been caused by a frost crack or some other injury, an old pruning cut that now the bark is exfoliating out around. Typically we're okay with that because they do have a tendency to have exfoliating bark. He would really have to look to see what's beyond that bark area that is exfoliating. Is there, say, an old pruning wound? Has there been a lilac borer getting in there, causing that damage as it appears in the picture? He could also, for this next winter, if it's a frost crack, for example, so it doesn't get any worse, he ought to wrap the trunk of the tree to prevent further frost crack damage. If it's an old injury from pruning, there's really nothing you need to do. The tree will in time, theoretically here, heal over that old pruning cut. And in 5 or 6 years, you won't know that it was ever there. So while I can't speak to the trunk specifically because of the image I've got to look at here, I would say that's 2 or 3 of the possibilities, and he should keep an eye on it. If it was a wound, he could trace the wound out and gently, if you cut back into good cambium layer, that actually kind of triggers the tree to think, not the trees think, but it's a response. I've been hurt. I need to form callus tissue. And that's that smoother bark underneath the outer bark that we are aware of. And if you invigorate that wound, if it's an older wound, to start to re-heal again, it could easily close up. That's not a large tree at this point.
Okay. All right. Great information. Thank you very much. Kelly, we're going back to you. And I always get the ones I can't pronounce. So this is from Julie. She says, hello, I hope you can help. Why is my orange, help me out somebody.
Asclepius
tuberosa attracting flies this year? When someone walks past the plant, houseflies fly out of it. It's so gross. I didn't have this problem last year. Okay. All right. So what do you think?
First of all, Julie, I take offense to the gross in relation to flies.
Most of us don't really like flies, Kelly.
So Asclepius tuberosa is milkweed. It is the butterfly weed, the bright orange one that most gardeners prefer. It's a really beautiful plant. But, I talked earlier about how they're, because of the toxic quality of that latex, the monarch caterpillars like it, the milkweed tussock moths like it. It is a pollinator plant. And many pollinators are not just your butterflies and your bees. They're flies, they're wasps, they're beetles, they're bugs. And actually, there is a book. It's called Milkweed, Monarchs, and More. And it is a book that goes through different insects that are actually attracted to milkweeds. And there are a lot. So it is a wonderful plant to have in your garden. As far as controlling, I would never control it because those flies are pollinating just as efficiently as bees. Well, I don't know about that, but maybe bees are a little more efficient, but I think flies are a little bit higher up because there's more of them and they're doing more pollination. So I don't know what to say. I mean, you couldn't spray because then you would be potentially harming all the other insects that visit your milkweed plants, the flowers of the plant. But the flowers attract tons of insects. So it just might be a year for her.
All right.
And I wanted to say that probably what she's seeing is more of a flower fly, not a house fly, like a icky house fly. And that's something else this weekend that I saw was a tiger fly.
It's tiger bee fly.
Large, and it has wings that are beautiful. And I had no idea it was a fly. And it's because my son lives where there's a lot of wood and they have carpenter bees. And this fly uses the larva of the carpenter bees for part of its life cycle. So I have just been learning. I'm never going to become Kelly, the insect girl, but I'm learning a whole bunch of wonderful, insect facts.
That's awesome.
I have noticed a lot of those, Ella. I've noticed a lot of those in my garden. Those tiger bee flies.
I've never seen them before.
I had only seen pictures before, but this year they're prolific. And you're right about the flower flies, the hover flies. These are excellent pollinators. They kind of mimic bees at times. Of course, you could see why it would be beneficial to mimic a bee for them. But yeah, flies are amazing pollinators.
Right, and they're not really, none of these are biting flies like a deer fly or something like that.
You just hear fly and you go, ugh, you know. So, okay, thank you, ladies. We've got about 90 seconds left. Richard, this one's for you. Let's see, I just lost it. Okay, here we go. Margie says, this time of year, my daylilies always look bad. Has anyone ever just mowed them down? And if so, how do they do in subsequent years? So she's tired of looking at them. What are some advice?
Well, you can, if they're pretty much totally brown, they're done for the season. And in which case, you either leave them laying flat on the ground as mulch to protect the crown in the wintertime, which is a good thing. Or if you set your lawnmower up very, very high, like to the highest setting, you can mow them off. The crown is in the soil. You're not going to harm the plant in that sense. And what's being mowed off is essentially done growing for the season. So yes, you could do that. I would also think about why they look so poor this time of year, and perhaps they could have been fed this spring, watered during the heat, so they had a little more substance to them, and so they'd still be with us.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We're out of time. It goes so fast. Thank you for sharing your time and talent, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.